If you're hearing this, welcome to Real Talk, not the evening news. It's just a father and his sons talking life, family, politics, and anything else the world throws our way. No scripts, no filters, just honest conversation. The kind families used to have around the kitchen table before everybody started arguing online. Pull up a chair and join the conversation. This is the ETC Podcast.
Welcome to the ETC Podcast. I am Eric. Welcome to the episode. Today's episode is recorded on November 12th, 2025. Joining me today is
Tom.
I'm Chase. And guys, I wanted to start off by talking about, major thing that happened today. I kind of thought we'd just kind of dive into it and then just go into the lighter subjects kind of as we continue. So, dating today's podcast, obviously, the House of Representatives came in on a vote this evening, concluded around 8 o'clock, with the final vote to reopen the government officially at yay. 216 Republicans, 6 Democrats. On the nay side, 2 Republicans and 207 Democrats. So remember, everyone, the vote that was needed was 215. We clearly passed that by 222. I seen a report earlier that, our president, Donald Trump, was going to, obviously sign the law into effect, expected around 9:45 tonight. So, Tom, if you want to kind of chime in and just let us know what the next steps are. Obviously, the president's signing, but when could we expect realistically for the government to open back up with SNAP funding?
That's a very good question. Some of that could happen fairly quickly. I could see kind of people returning to work Friday or even Monday. Then I could see SNAP benefits getting kicked into place as fast as possible. I mean, it's going to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight. There's a lot of logistics that goes into those payments. However, they really should be queued up and ready to go to the states, and then the state's responsibility to get them out to the people. So I don't know logistically. It very well may not happen at the end of the month, till the end of the month. I'm hoping, I haven't heard, but I'm hoping that they back pay everyone, which then sets everybody up for a little bit better than normal Christmas, which would be really nice, to kind of offset some of the added expense that purchasing their own food. If they've done that this month as well. Yeah, that's positive. The Senate voted to break the filibuster, the stalemate there in the Senate on Sunday, and this process has actually moved fairly quickly. I wasn't expecting it to move quite this fast. So it's great that it's going to be on the president's desk, hopefully this evening, and we can end the longest government shutdown that we've experienced. Obviously, there's folks that work for the federal government. They'll get back paid. They're not losing any money. I know it's been difficult for many of them. I have friends that work for the government, our military. Very important that they get paid. I hope that we put together something in the very near future, legislative wise, that will prevent these type of shutdowns from occurring in the future, so that they're not used for leverage like they were this time around. Sometimes you got to play every card you've got. I understand that. Sometimes it's what it takes to get policies through and things like that. But you got to think about the impact to the people. And this long of a government shutdown in the middle of the holiday season or the start of the holiday season is definitely not a good thing. Who knows how fast everything can happen, but it's going to be interesting to see in the next few days. And I'm sure next week we'll have more to say on this topic.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. Having some safeguards, there needs to be some kind of different leverage, right? It's absolutely important for, I think, SNAP benefits. That's something that shouldn't be used as leverage by any particular political party to try to push their policies and agenda. But there's also a lot of other things to consider. I mean, we were talking about air traffic control, and we were talking about the military, and a lot of these other things that aren't getting paid because the government shuts down. So, yeah, I hope in the future, and hopefully without involving a government shutdown to do it, there becomes some sort of other solution or other other leverage. If a government shutdown is to occur, then I understand would have to be something important, but maybe something else on the line that's just not going to get funded. I'm not sure what that could be, but I definitely agree there.
Changing up gears a little bit, we did talk pretty heavy on politics last time, so we're actually going to lean into a little more culture on this episode. So one thing that me and my brother Chase and I wanted to discuss, we've been talking on and off about it today. We have been seeing some stuff on YouTube, and I've been seeing some, reports and stuff asking a question throughout the gaming sphere this week. Is Steam technically a monopoly? And if so, is that a bad thing? Now, here's some key facts and allegations to consider. Steam is a major digital game distributing platform. A class action lawsuit alleges Valve uses its position to require publishers to maintain a most favored nation price terms, parity clauses, and pay a 30% cut, which plaintiffs say allow Steam to keep game prices higher and choke the competing storefronts. Now, I have never made a game. I've messed with it, dabbled with it in the past, but I have very limited coding experience and I am not a developer. So I cannot speak on the prices or anything of the such that is required to make a Steam game, stealth Steam keys, or anything like that. But one thing I do want to mention is one of the best parts of Steam, in my opinion, is the ability to play an indie game made by a single dev. I feel like that is an amazing ability and outreach there for a no-name dev. Like, for example, we're going to go dive into a couple indie games that my brother and I have played here recently, starting with RV There Yet. Me and my brother, we found this game a couple weeks ago, and we've had an absolute blast on it. Now, here's the thing that you have to consider when it comes to this kind of thing. When you're looking at all the aspects and stuff when it comes to an indie developer, is the game going to sell anything? Because in some of these, platforms that you release these games on, they require a upfront cost, to kind of distribute the balance and stuff like that. And oftentimes single game developers, like for example, Schedule One Tyler Games, a very popular indie game that was created, led by creators like Queso, that made the game very, very popular for a one person shop. Now, one thing that we are considering here, and when we get over to Chase, he may have some opinions and things like that. Is there a high barrier to entry? Yes, in a way, because most gamers nowadays, we just go towards Steam automatically. It's not something that we think secondly of. The Epic Store isn't the best. In my opinion, the EA Store is basically malware. You close it and it still pops up in your tray and it's just there lurking. You have to actually go into Task Manager to close it. So, there are some actual alternatives though. There are things like that. And the case against Valve and Steam is ongoing. Developers have won class certification in at least one antitrust lawsuit alleging violations of the Sherman Antitrust Act. So that's kind of where we stand right now when it comes to, is Steam technically a monopoly? And I feel like the answer is yes, but it's not a negative monopoly, I don't think, because they're not actively hurting their competitors themselves. Steam is not doing anything aggressively towards other, game fronts. Like, for example, Epic Games was trying to be really aggressive and trying to get AAA publishers to sign strictly with Epic Games. Steam does not do that. So I would argue that other game, you know, hubs where games are put on, I would argue that there has been more aggressive tactics from things that aren't Steam. Do you have anything you want to add, Chase?
Yeah, I don't really think it's a monopoly. Look, when I'm looking to buy a game, a lot of times I'll look at what I want and I'll be like, you know what? This is kind of too expensive. I really want this right now. But before I do that, I'm always going to go to check, other websites. There's what was formerly known as CD keys. I don't know what it is now. But they always sell games cheaper than a lot of times what you're going to find on Steam or the mainline stores. So, I mean, I just like anyone else, I'm going to look for where I can find the deal before I just, spend the money on whatever I find first. So now that doesn't make Steam not a monopoly. And admittedly, I'm not too sure what their business practices are or how predatory they are as far as their competitors. But I wouldn't imagine it as a classic monopoly myself.
Yeah, and another great example of this, there's a big ordeal when it comes to Steam and its voluntary developers. For example, a big game that you played and I didn't. Larian Studios, when they released Baldur's Gate 3, they released it on GOG and Steam. There is no exclusivity. And I believe Tom has something he'd like to say as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna kind of take the non-monopoly approach. I have a Steam account. I've downloaded and purchased a few games over the years from Steam. Very little. I'm not a gamer, um, but I kind of have the belief of less government control, let capitalism, let the market solve this problem. Steam or the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, any of these other stores out there for digital content, we've got to let the market fix itself. Don't over regulate stuff because oftentimes, it looks like it's going to be pretty on the front end. When you start regulating an industry, everything looks really good and everything's awesome and whatever. And then, 10 years down the road, it starts crashing down because you're back to a situation where you've only got one or two competitors because additional regulation and hurdles that everybody had to jump through causes a stifling of innovation. So that's just my thought. The EU tends to always have a lot to say about this type of thing. Some positive things that have come out of the EU related to tech and such is the USB-C connections on our devices. Apple probably would not have changed the Lightning connector to USB-C if it wasn't for the EU. Kind of shifting a little bit, the Apple Store, if you're outside of the US, like in the EU, you can choose other alternative stores. So you don't have to go to the Apple Store. But you know what? One of the things about the Apple Store that I really like is those apps are vetted. Somebody's actually taken a look at them. Who knows how much is actually done anymore? Is it done by AI and automation? Uh, but previously, at one time, there was actually people that actually took a look at the application and I'm sure they ran some scans on it and some checks and that sort of thing and published it. Now, granted, over the years, things have slipped by. I don't want to stifle innovation. And I think when the government starts trying to regulate an industry or make things harder for businesses to innovate, then you stifle that innovation. And ultimately, long term, I think the consumer actually loses. Short term, I think it's going to look like the consumer wins, but I think long term, the consumer loses in those situations. There's been several big antitrust cases over the years, a big one with Microsoft and Internet Explorer back in the day, the browser war and all of that, and Microsoft bundling Internet Explorer with Windows and all of that. So I just think the government needs to stay out of it and let the market fix itself. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, and that definitely makes sense. And yeah, just to further dive in on that, yeah, when Microsoft and the United States versus Microsoft in 1998, that is an example of monopoly because it was causing harm, to users specifically because how they were kind of cornering the market when it came to Windows OS. You had to, at that point, Microsoft was basically running on edge, and that was it. There was no other way around it. And I feel like that's a big difference when we're thinking about, labeling Steam as a monopoly. I don't see it that way. I truly don't. I am also of the belief that Steam is there because typically that I've seen anyway, the games that are sold on Steam typically do run cheaper than console stores. And I feel like that is something that, should be stated and should be kind of zoomed in on. So another thing that I kind of thought that we could talk about today on this podcast, is just, adding more into culture. What podcasts are we listening to right now? You know, for me, this dream of a podcast started back when I was in high school. I was doing a podcast with one of my friends for airsoft, and we would just break in and we do basic questions. How to fix this on your airsoft gun, what kind of gear should you run in a military simulation, things of that sort. I've always been interested in running a podcast, but what I've always listened to, going back years. I've been an active listener of True Crime Garage since 2015. That's a podcast, obviously about, true crime that happens in the world today. Where I used to be a truck driver, I got through my job with podcasts. So I was listening to a podcast, one or two or three a day while I was on the road. And podcasts are very important to me for that reason. Music and stuff like that, I do listen to and I love music. But podcasts for me is communication, interaction, and learning how people think or interests come together. So outside of the True Crime Garage, I'm listening to the Pat McAfee show. And that is something also that I've listened to for a very long time. Those are the two podcasts that I typically hammer. Now, if I do want to go more towards my job related, there's a podcast called Darknet Diaries, and I do listen to that as well. It's very interesting from somebody in the tech job. He goes through Jack Crusader. He goes through and interviews people who are within the tech or attackers or defenders of the network. And I kind of just want to spread the love and I want to hear what my brother's listening to this time of year.
So yeah, man, I listen to a variety of podcasts, especially my way to and from work. That's my time that I'm listening to a podcast. If I can. Sometimes I'm carpooling, so I might just listen to music. But yeah, I like to listen to politics. Pretty big on that. There's been times, well, I would say there's been weeks that I would listen to a political podcast at least once, if not twice a day. So um, and that's gonna be the Daily Wire. Anything coming from that, I mean, they're the guys I like. I mean, I hold the opinion that essentially I don't think unbiased news is a thing. So if I'm gonna listen to news, if I'm gonna listen to politics, I'm gonna listen to the people I think that kind of agree with me. I don't like the idea of an echo chamber, but at the same time, in this day and age, how do you get out of it? There's not, like I said, I don't think that there's really unbiased news. I think every news agency out there has a point to prove. They have an agenda, and that's just you pick what you want. So that's what I enjoy. Another podcast that I listen to is I like 40K Warhammer 40K. So I like to listen to the 40K forecast. Every now and again, it's just they just kind of go into the lore of the video game. I got into it because I liked Space Marine 2 video game really well. So they kind of went into a lot of lore behind that, and I didn't realize, I was just playing the Space Marine game. I had no idea before there was anything like that. There was the tabletop game, and with the tabletop game came a lot of books, and the books were good writing for the most part. Now, some of it, not so much from what I understand, but for the most part, it's good. And I really enjoy listening to that lore. And third place for me, gotta be Rogan, man. It's just sometimes you find an episode with Rogan that's just, the guests he has on, it's just super interesting to hear because you never know what you're gonna get, man. I was a fan of the alien stuff. I was a fan of the CIA stuff when he was doing some stuff with some people he had on about that. Um, I like listening to Rogan some too, even when, especially during election season. This last one, man, not this off year one, but the big election, you know, in 2024. It was really cool hearing, one of the president candidates come on there, and I believe Rogan when he said that he would have absolutely had Kamala on there too to do it if everything would have worked out. But yeah, I think he has a really interesting approach to just bringing a lot of interesting perspectives on there. Um, Tom, what is it you're listening to around this time?
Yeah, so I am kind of taking a political break at the moment to not listen to as much political podcasts. If I am listening to political podcasts, I would probably be listening to the Daily Wire stuff, Ben Shapiro's show and some of the things that they're releasing as well. I've kind of got into the Sean Ryan show. That's pretty cool as well. He kind of a little edgy. Um, but kind of a mix of politics and patriotism, CIA, special ops, and that sort of thing. So he's got a really good show, and I like listening to him as well. Has had some wonderful guests, and then really on the lighter side, I'm really paying a lot of attention to AI. So I listen to the Everyday AI podcast just about every day. I don't commute. I work from home. So I don't have that normal drive time that I used to have. So that I don't have the opportunity to listen to as much as I used to. Now, I will occasionally put a podcast on during the day while I'm working, but for the most part, I really don't have the opportunity to do that because I'm on and off calls a lot. The Everyday AI podcast, as well as the AI Hustle podcast, are probably two of the AI podcasts that I listen to almost daily. So uh, I was a huge fan of the Dan Bongino show. I hate to see that. Um, you know, hate I hated to lose him in the podcast sphere, media sphere, to take the job with the FBI. However, he's a good guy, and it's good to see him in that role as deputy director of the FBI. We need good people, good, solid, conservative, patriotic people in the FBI to get to the bottom of some of the crap that's going on in our country. But as we kind of transition just a little bit, um, I want to kind of do a little remembrance section here. Um, Back on November 3rd, we lost a former vice president, Dick Cheney. Whoever's opinion on Dick Cheney, like him, hate him, um, whatever, it doesn't really matter. He was a very influential political figure, um, and he passed away back on November 3rd. He was instrumental in during the 9/11 crisis with President George W. Bush. He also served um, in multiple other um, White Houses as well as the Chief of Staff, Secretary of Defense. He was a congressman, and then, of course, a vice president. So he definitely has a history in politics. A lot of people could say some negative things about him or positive things about him. It doesn't really matter. But I want to take just a moment, honor him. He did give a big part of his life to public service. And I think it needs a moment of being honored. Okay. So that kind of sums up that. So we talked a little bit about our podcasts and what we're listening to. And now I gave some honor to Vice President Dick Cheney. Now I'm going to talk just briefly about our social media. So we did publish our first episode on Monday, and it is now available on YouTube as a podcast, Apple, and um, Spotify. So those three venues are where you're going to be able to find it right now. Just search for the ETC podcast or go to etcpodcast.com and scroll to the bottom of the page, and you'll be able to select a direct link to any of those podcasts, and you'll be able to subscribe and leave a review as well. Um, Listen to the podcast. Our goal is to publish one every week. Hopefully around Monday is when we're going to publish. Trying to keep it as consistent as possible. That's not always going to happen, but that is the plan. Take a moment here, go to etcpodcast.com and subscribe to our podcast. Now, we're going to launch some Facebook and Twitter and some other social medias in the next upcoming weeks, and we'll be modifying the website and adding more functionality and features there as time goes on. So continue to check us out at etcpodcast.com. And you can find this podcast where all good podcasts are located: the Apple Play Store, or excuse me, the man, I've got to stop saying the Apple Play Store. The Apple Podcast Store, or Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or YouTube. So you can't publish to the Google Play Store anymore. You have to publish to YouTube. So that was a little bit of a switch for me from what I was used to. But I got it out there, and we're all set and ready to go. Look forward to you guys subscribing and listening to us. And if you have any comments, feel free to comment. Feel free to send us some feedback and that sort of thing. And we want to improve the podcast each and every week and get a little better. So, a transition just briefly here. I got a couple of interesting things coming up. Next week, I am going to be leaving for a 10-night cruise out of the port of Miami. So Wednesday night we fly down, or Wednesday morning we fly down. We sail out of Miami uh, on Thursday on the MSC Davina, uh, and we're gonna do a 10-day cruise out in the Caribbean. We'll be going to the Dominican Republic, Aruba, Bonaire. The ABC Islands. Would have been going to Jamaica, but because of the hurricane, I'm certain we will probably end up with an extra sea day that day. But that's coming up. Not sure what we're going to do. We might try to do an episode at sea. Not sure what that's going to end up like, but we're going to talk about that over the next few days and kind of get a plan together. We'll record one before I leave, I'm sure, or while I'm in Miami, and then we will do one while I'm gone as well, because I won't be back until December the 2nd. So it's going to be a really nice cruise, the longest one we've ever taken, and I'm pretty excited about that. So I also am a travel agent. So should you, a little shameless plug here, should you need travel arrangements, want to book a cruise or any type of all-inclusive resort or a trip to grandma's house or whatever you're looking for, and you need lodging, hotels, event tickets, theme park tickets, um, international travel, whatever you want to do, we can do it. And our website is getupandgotravel.us. And you can just reach out to me, um, and I would be happy to answer your questions. So you can find me at getupandgotravel.us or on Facebook under Get Up and Go Travel by Tom. And that's the end of the shameless plug. So I'm going to turn it back over to the boys, and um, what's on your mind as we continue this episode?
Yeah, so starting off, I would like to reiterate when he says collective we meaning the people here a couple hours away are not fortunate. We will not be on the cruise, but Mama Tony and Tom will be heading away. We wish them the best on their bon voyage for the 10-day cruise, where they're going to hopefully, find a deeper meaning, rediscover themselves. Will they come back feeling different? Will Tom come back slightly happier or still be a little angry, a little pessimistic? We'll find out. Be a good day. But one thing I did want to start talking about is in regards to social media, I am actually debating on doing my first ever sabbatical from social media. This will be one thing that I've never done before. I've limited myself to, no social media after 9 o'clock. But I find that a lot of people who I am close with, we just don't disagree. We don't agree politically, and this is people who I grew up with, people that I'm friends with, and it's taking a toll on me mentally. So my stress levels are up. I'm constantly, on edge, waiting to. I'm a debater. Sorry, I'm one of those guys out there who is going to say what's on my mind. If I think you're wrong, I think you're wrong. I'm going to say it, and I probably may regret things I say down the line. I mean, I don't get to the point to where I'm, you know, being angry and calling people stupid names or anything, but it does weigh a toll on me. So I was talking to the guys here, obviously not on the podcast, but trying to see, have they ever done anything like this, or how do they find news or keep up with current events when they're not on social media? Because Obviously, Tom posts the most out of all three of us, but I'm a close second. And he's got more friends, but he is slightly older. On Facebook as social media goes. My brother, he doesn't post as much as we do. He's probably in the bottom percentile of people who post on Facebook. And if you didn't know, you'd think the Facebook is just inactive. But so I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit, someone who does not partake in social media as much as I do. Like when I get on social media, it's a feeling I've had since I was a kid. I have to post, and this is drastic, people. Okay, brace for it. If I don't post, I think people think I'm dead. So I constantly have to post because I feel like if I don't, then, and this is just my mind, okay? This is something that I've worried about for the past 20 years. If I do not post, then I'm going to end up in a ditch somewhere and no one will know. So it's more of me posting to let people know, hey, I'm still alive. But as someone who does not post often, what's your thoughts? What do you think social media is? Do you think it's just a way to read? How do you take social media where you don't post as much?
I just was never interested in posting, to be honest. I It's just not something I ever really think about. Um, Plus I've always been an introvert like my entire life. And even with this, podcast, I said, you know what, I'm not big on the podcast or social media or really someone who likes his voice to be heard by a lot of people, but I do like spending time with my dad and my brother and just having a conversation for an hour. And you know what, if we want to podcast that, then that's fine. Just to spend the time with everybody is good enough for me. But yeah, I mean, I see a lot of that, man. I scroll every now and again, but to be honest, I use social media more so for just like watching like the reels and like the videos and stuff. It's not so much to me about, I guess, kind of trying to keep up with everyone and see what everyone's up to. Every now and again I scroll, but it's typically not much. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have any advice for taking a break from it just because I've never really posted or used it in any other way other than just like some mindless entertainment to kind of doom scroll through some videos. Um, but I will tell you, for an introvert like myself, it's a pretty peaceful life to never post and, just kind of live and do your thing. I guess. Tom, do you have anything to say about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm relatively quiet on social media. I try to stay away from the political side of things to a certain extent. It's difficult. I have social media friends or Facebook friends of both parties, people I've known for years, people that are extreme on both sides of the aisle. It does take a toll on you. It's difficult sometimes because you do want I've got a friend, I've known for, 10, almost probably 10, 11, 12 years or so. Um, he's got a grandbaby. I love to see grandbaby pictures, and I like to make sure he's okay and his family's okay, but we don't definitely politics, we definitely don't see eye to eye, not even close. And this person has literally posted negativity about our current president every single day or even multiple times a day, regardless. I mean, he could like do something amazing and whatever, but he would have something negative to say. So that sucks. But I still keep him on Facebook. I still comment on posts that are not political. I don't engage with him. I think I could because I think we have a relationship to an extent that we respect each other enough that we could engage in an honest conversation. But I'm finding less and less of that. People are very set in their views, not willing to listen to the other side or a alternative solution or alternative reality, and that makes it very difficult. I'm a conservative. I don't mix that. I don't. Everybody knows. Matter of fact, it's in my bio on Facebook. Um, I'm a Christian number one. a father, a conservative husband. I mean, that's my bio on Facebook. So I don't mix words. Everybody knows I'm a conservative. Anybody that's known me, anybody that's had a conversation with me for any length of time knows that I'm a conservative. Um, I'm a big Second Amendment fan. I'm a big First Amendment fan. I'm a big constitutional guy, and I think overall, I think our current president is doing a pretty decent job. There's lots of things that he could do better, but you know, I'm of the belief that we need to pray for our leaders. And if we're out there bashing our leaders, Democrat or Republican, uh, Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or um, Mitch McConnell or Dick Cheney or whoever, we need to pray for our leaders. And that's something that's important to me. And it's very hard to do that when you're out there bashing them. Um, as a conservative, but as a American, I want to see our country succeed. I want to see my kids and my grandkids um, have better opportunities than I've had. And we can continue on that track, but we got to stop being negative. We got to start listening to the other side, understand where they're coming from, and have a dialogue, have a good, solid conversation. And that's one of the things that I really liked about Charlie Kirk was he had conversations with people, if he disagreed with them or not. Honest conversations, sharing his beliefs, his worldview, his political views on different topics. We need that type of dialogue on both sides of the aisle continuously. If we don't talk, we're not going to get anything accomplished because Congress is pretty much divided. I mean, yeah, we have a little bit of a additional or whatever, but number of members, so we've got the upper hand a little bit. We have some control there, but ultimately, we got a way to go.
Yeah, me and you have talked about this before, and I've always said, any president that's in, I've seen where, when Obama was in, when Biden was in, didn't matter to me. I thought it would just be so cool to meet like a U.S. president. I would show them respect, like even though maybe I didn't agree with their policies, I didn't like a lot of the things they did. I would still be more than willing to shake their hand, have a conversation.
Absolutely.
I think there's just respect for the presidency, and I have respect for this country, so that's a big part of it. Or, any leadership, as a matter of fact, I would definitely be interested in meeting with or having a conversation just because I think there's just respect that should be involved there, even if you don't agree with them. And I'm typically capable of having conversations fairly easy with people who don't agree with me on politics. Because I'm more than okay with just saying agree to disagree if there's something that, two opposing viewpoints really just can't find middle ground for. And that's gotta be a really tough thing just to imagine yourself as a member of Congress where agree to disagree isn't really the end to a conversation. It kind of gets forced, right, with these government shutdowns that there has to be a solution. You can't just, especially with the filibuster, right? You can't just end it with I agree to disagree. There has to be, you just kind of have to keep pounding it until you come up with something that kind of works for everybody. And I haven't read into the solution that was made to break the filibuster. I mean, I think it was probably just pressure from everything going on more than anything. But I mean, it just seems like a really tough thing to come up with, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And I am not someone who is going to be able to read it. First off, because even though it was just passed, and I have not checked yet, but typically when these CRs get passed, we get it should be able to read them first thing. But one thing that my brother and I wanted to talk about, speaking of agreeing to disagree, I have to come on air and apologize for something that I said to him, not in the podcast realm, but just talking to him gamer to gamer. So this last year, my brother kickstarted this journey that he was going to play a game from 2015 that neither of us had ever played before. Okay. Now, first off, that's completely fine. Play what you want. But he was talking this game up so much. And I was like, man, it cannot be that good. Okay. So I finally caved in a week ago and I downloaded it and I started playing it yesterday. Okay, the game is Shadow of War Middle Earth. And the reason why this game is so special is because a patent that is out by Warner Bros., the creator of the game, that is called the Nemesis system. And what this Nemesis system is, it's only in two games, okay, that I know of, and that he's told me it is only in two games, both by Warner Bros. Essentially, you take NPCs, non-playable characters for all you non-gaming people, and then you fight these non-playable characters, and if they beat you, they rank up and they suddenly have a name and a title. And the more and more and more you fight them and the more you lose to them, they rank up. Or the more you lose to other bots or other orcs is the enemy in this game at the beginning. And I'll spoil it because I am literally 5 hours into this game and I have not played the first campaign mission because there's a guy on there that is so limited to my playthrough named Farouk, and he's like the Flame War Chief or something like that. And I have slain him 6 times. He has beat me 4 times, and he just comes back and rubs it in my face. And it's gotten me so angry to the point to where every time he's on the board, it's on sight. I am jumping him or he's jumping me, to which my brother literally told me last night, if you keep fighting him and you keep winning, he's just going to get stronger. He does not actually die. So, to kind of end my part of this conversation, I am a level 8 on this game. And this guy, this non playable character that I cannot stand, is a level 19. And he is immune to almost any kind of attack in the game right now. It is so aggravating to know that this guy is just going to keep hounding me throughout the rest of the game because I was an idiot and didn't know how this Nemesis system works. So now that I've given you your roses, sir, how do you feel about Nemesis?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most creative systems that we've seen in gaming, and the reason, one reason why he brings it up is it's actually patented by Warner Brothers. So this system, it can't be used by really any other game, right? I mean, this system of like, and it's anyone. You fight named characters in the game, and it's fun, and they smack talk you, and it's pretty hilarious, and even just the random like mobs, as you call them. They're not bosses, but they're just like grunts that you have to fight. Even one of them, if they manage to kill you, then they are promoted to a captain, and then they're just gonna talk you up the whole time. They're gonna smack talk you it just at any given moment, and it's quite hilarious. But where it's been patented, so this game that came out this long ago, there's you just other developers can't come out with games utilizing a system that's unique like that in this way. And I just feel like we could have had several more games that came out at this point using a system similar to this one that and who knows, people could have added things to it, taken it to another level. You know, it's one of the most unique games that you will ever play, so I definitely recommend giving it a try if you've never played it before, and it's one of those games that are kinda relaxing too, I think. I mean, yeah, stressful when they get you several times in a row and they just keep smack talking you, and sometimes it's rage inducing, but it is funny, a humorous game, and, yeah, it's a really good time.
Yeah, and to wrap up here, we are getting close to the hour, as promised, dear listener. We're not going to try to talk the head off for more than an hour, unless, we start getting some comments being like, hey, I really like the cut of this guy's jib. Let's hear him a little bit longer. But I want to end this conversation that we're currently on with the notification that, yes, this patent was started, written in 2015, sent out to the government in 2017, approved 2021, and we will not be able to get this system in another game until 2035. So, with that being said, that is very depressing, but who knows? Maybe down the line, me and my brother and Tom eventually, if he wants to, maybe every other podcast we do a game of the week. I know some podcasts, they come out here and they do books of the week, or they do song of the week, or they do post of the week, or, just something like, a little bit of, community engagement and what we recommend, and you might not like every game we recommend, but we play a lot of different games. So, this has been the ETC podcast. And we are so happy to be continuing doing this and delivering you guys good stuff. Just a reminder, you can find us where all major podcasts are. You can find us on Spotify, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, and you can find us on YouTube. Be paying attention to our website, etc.com. Is that right, Tom?
Nope, etcpodcast.com.
etcpodcast.com. And I promise, eventually, maybe next week, tune in to find out, I will get the name of our own podcast right. However, this has been a wonderful conversation as per usual. Maybe next time, pull you up a chair. Come on, in the comments section, let's hear it. Thanksgiving's coming up. What's your thoughts? What's your food? Who do you got for the Lions game coming up? We're excited to hear this stuff from, all of our wonderful, beautiful, absolute stud listeners. And, just have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thanks for wrapping up the podcast. But you know what? You're talking about games. I will talk about EDC, or everyday carry. Uh, I'll 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 share what's in my pockets and what I'm carrying every day, and you guys can talk about games, and maybe eventually we'll meet in the middle, and I'll find a couple games to play, and well, you'll increase the weight in your pockets. But anyway, it's been a wonderful podcast, and I am excited for my trip next week, but I'm also excited for the next episode. So thanks for listening, everyone. And this is a wrap. The views, opinions, and statements expressed in this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the hosts, their affiliates, or any organization they may be associated with. The hosts represent themselves and only themselves. Any information presented should not be considered professional advice. Listeners are encouraged to form their own opinion and seek independent verification where appropriate.